My father came from Japan in 1905. He was 15 when he immigrated. He worked until he was able to buy respect and build a store. It was World War II when this man named Kenji woke up. Ken was not a soldier. He was just a man with a family who owned a store in LA. He lived on the second floor of the little store he ran. They called him immigrant. In Japanese, he said he was called Issei, first generation in the United States. To the lady, the one in San Francisco, who asked, why did the Japanese Americans let the government put them in those camps without protest? Enryo is a Japanese word which sounds like Enlyo. What does a being a lion have to do with humility? I asked Papa, who said, could be, since by tradition, lions are regally proud. Enryo is pride in disguise. Even so, it is holding back, saying, no thank you, saying, no trouble at all. But really, my dad is a quiet man. He appreciates the silence. See, for him, speaking Japanese is like a walk in the park. Speaking English is like climbing a barbed wire fence. My father's accent is bumpy, like the conversation between airplane tires and the American concrete that welcomed his arrival to the United States. His pronunciation has trouble landing. His tongue knows turbulence. Culture is the link between you and your past. It's what keeps the idea of your people alive. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, much of the population of the United States feared all the Japanese members of society. To sell the fears, the United States forced all these people to relocate to internment camps. As a result, Japanese American culture was lost in these institutions. Actor George Takei details the harsh reality from his personal experience. When we came out of the camp, that's when I first realized that being in a camp, that being Japanese American, was something shameful. So through the poems, camp notes, and other writings by Mitsuyo Yamada, Kenji by Fort Minor, Faith by Yuki Oda, Barracks Home by Tojo Kawakami, Internment by Julia S. Como, and The Bridges by G.M. Yamazawa, we learn about the struggles our fellow Americans suffered both inside and outside of these camps. Because we can't let fear drive policy, as it can destroy one's identity. Issei, a poetry program. Everybody was afraid of the Germans, afraid of the Japs, but most of all, afraid of a homeland attack. 3 weeks before 1942, Pearl Harbor's been bombed and the Japs are coming. Pictures of soldiers dying and running. The president said that the evil Japanese in our home country will be locked away. They gave Ken a couple of days to get his whole life packed in 2 bags. Just 2 bags. Couldn't even pack his clothes. When the kids asked, Mom, where are we going? Nobody even knew what to say to them. Ken didn't want to lie. He said, the U.S. is looking for spies, so we have to live in a place called Manaza. As we boarded bus bags on both sides, the Seattle Times photographer said, smile. And so obediently, I smiled. And the caption the next day read, note smiling faces. A lesson to Tokyo. After a long train ride, the physical examination, the delousing with DDT, the branding of her indignation, she falls asleep. She wakens in unfamiliar barracks, Crystal City, Texas. On a land once a pasture, she sees through her tears on the double row of barbed wire fencing, which holds them in like stolid cattle, dewdrops impaled and golden. This is our barracks, squatting on the ground, top paper shacks partitioned into rooms by sheetrock walls, transmitting every sound of our neighbors' gossip or the sweep of brooms. The open door welcomes the refugees, and now there's at least no need to roam. Here, space enlarges memories. Beyond the bounds of the camps, this new home. The floor is carpeted with dust, wind-borne dry alkali, patterned with insect feet. What peace can such a place as this impart? We can but sense bewildered and forlorn the time disrupted by the war from neat routines must now adjust within the heart. So now they're in a town with soldiers surrounding them. Every day, every night, look down at them. From watchtowers up on the wall. Stop it. Don't look at the gunmen. You don't want to get the soldiers wondering if you're going to run or not. Because if you run, you might get shot. Other than that, try not to think about it. He wasn't going to make any problems. He had a little garden with vegetables and fruits that he gave to the troops in a basket his wife made. But in the back of his mind, what he really wanted was his family's lives saved. Prisoners of war in their own damn country. Come to think of it, I should have run off to Canada, hijacked a plane to Algeria, I should have pulled myself up from my bra straps and kicked them in the groin. Should have bombed a bake, tried self-immolation, hold myself up in a wood frame house, and let you watch me burn up in the 6 o'clock news. Should have run howling down the street, naked and assaulted you at breakfast. By AP wire photo, should have screamed, bloody murder! Like the kitty Genovese. In our area was a blackhead. He told us what's what in a warden's helmet. Turn off your lights! It's curfew time! I was reading with my flashlight under my blanket, but the barrack boards in the hot sun had shrunk slightly, telling bars of light. Off with your lights! There must be no light! Time passed in the prison town. He wondered if they would live it down, and if and when they were free. The only way out was joining the army, and supposedly some men went out for the army, signed on. I stopped to watch the curious crowd around 2 army uniforms. Old men shouting from their fringes, Bakarero! Naniru toka! Dumbbells! We don't believe you! Inside the circle shouting, Bakani Saruna! Don't make a fool of us! I swung around and saw hundreds of fixed eyes, listening and not listening to the voices, beating signals in the desert. Why should I volunteer? I am an American. I have a right to be drafted. Ken got out. Big hopes of a normal life with his kids and his wife. But when they got back home, what they saw made them feel so alone. These people had trashed every room, smashed in the windows and bashed in the doors, written on the walls and on the floor, Japs not welcome anymore. And Kenji dropped both of his bags and he just stood outside. He looked at his wife without saying a word, and his wife looked back, wiping tears away, saying, someday we'll be okay. Free at last. In this town aimless, I walked against the rush hour traffic. My first day in a real city where no one knew me. No one except one hissing voice that said, dirty Jap! Warm spittle on my right cheek. I turned and faced the shop window, and my spittled face spilled onto a hill of books, words on display. In the government square, people crisscrossed the street like spokes on a giant wheel. I lifted my right hand, but it would not obey. My other hand fumbled for a hanky. My tears would not wash it. They stopped and parted. My hanky brushed the forked tears and spittle together. I edged toward the curb, loosened my fist hold, and the bleach-laced mother-ironed hanky blossomed in the gutter-topped teeth-marked gumwads and healed candy wrappers. Everyone knew me. But my father's accent could be an asshole, because my father's accent ain't smooth like my birth certificate. It's rough around the edges like my family's grave. It's the crease that creates the wings on a paper crane. See, my father's accent is like a hole in the Japanese internment camp fence. It's an escape route to his culture. His accent is thick and his words stick together like the vinegar rice on his working hands. He spent more time cooking for people than working on his speech because he knew standard English wasn't going to feed his children. The recipe was his way of talking to Americans. It's how people understand what his heart is trying to say. You see, the accent is the mark of the immigrant. It's a ruler with mile-long increments that measure the distance away from home. Maybe I'm being defensive because I'm afraid that my rusty Japanese is a broken chain link that can't hold my lineage together. I'm afraid of passing down my lack of language to my children, and their grandpa's accent will sound more foreign than family. I'm selfish, writing poems on poems and poems and poems about Japan when the only word I know how to write in Japanese is my name. With trying times as well as good, the years so fleetingly passed, but left in its wake a realization that our path has been and always will be an upward trail.